Hey, it's Mario here, and in this video you're going to learn how to feel less hungry. I'm going to give you 5 tips that will allow you to reduce the hunger on your diet, allow you to feel fuller, make the whole process a little bit more enjoyable, and set yourself up for success, because we know that a lot of diets, they fall apart basically because people are getting too hungry. They simply can't manage the hunger and they end up overeating, getting out of that caloric deficit into a maintenance or a surplus, even regaining a lot of the weight they've lost. So let's crack into it. The first step and the first thing that is backed up by research, and that is avoid distracted eating. What is distracted eating? Well, you're looking at your smartphone, playing Pokemon Go, using Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook at the same time when you're consuming food, or watching TV, or driving, or doing multiple different things while at the same time you're eating. And there's been a really great study from 2013 that looked at what happens when people are distracted at the same time they consume food. And what they found is that on average people consume a lot more food in that meal, but not only that, but they consume more food in the consecutive meals that follow that meal in the same day. So basically you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not paying attention to the food that you're eating. And one of the reasons could be simply because that food is not in your memory. Like, yeah, that food is just like you don't remember how much you ate, and now you're like, oh yeah, I ate that much in school, I'm just gonna eat a little bit more because I'm not sure. And at the same time, also the satiety and the hunger signals get a little bit messed up because you're not paying attention, because you're constantly distracted. This is a huge problem in today's world that I think is not being addressed enough, because we're being distracted, we're being bombarded by so many notifications, phone calls, vibrations, like all these things. They're simply distracting us, and we don't have a moment to sit down and eat a proper meal. So pay attention to this. Get out of that vicious cycle, get out of the loop, and try to pay a little bit more attention to the food that you're eating. This is going to make a huge difference when it comes to your hunger and your overall caloric intake. Without even trying to count everything, you can still eat a little bit less. So second one, a big one here, backed up by research as well, is you want to base your diet on whole, healthy, unprocessed food versus eating the majority of that from processed foods. And if you look at the standard American diet, a lot of the calories that people consume are just processed foods. They're loaded with fat, they're loaded with different sugars, processed stuff inside. And what that does really is trains your body in a vicious cycle of basically that getting that reward signal from eating food. And really great theory in this is from Stephan Guyenet, who's a really famous doctor who is an obesity researcher, who looked at that when you overconsume these hyperpalatable foods, they are training your brain that you're getting a reward. So basically it's motivating yourself to eat a little bit more of that food. So anytime you overconsume and you get into a vicious cycle, you're just motivating yourself unconsciously that you want to eat more of that food. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. I mean, it's really hard to control yourself if you're consuming those highly refined, high fat, high sugar types of foods. So you want to make sure to base 90% of your diets from whole, healthy, unprocessed food with plenty of vegetables, plenty of legumes, fruits, a lot of different types of protein sources that will allow you to feel a lot fuller on your diet, and you're going to have a lot less cravings. I even did challenges myself where I took 30 days no processed food challenge, 0 processed food. The only exception to this was cottage cheese. So I allowed myself to eat cottage cheese as a type of a processed food. Obviously there's caveats to every single rule, and one of these is, let's say, cottage cheese. So I basically said to myself, okay, I'm no processed food for 30 days. So no sweet stuff, nothing, just naturally occurring sugars that are found in fruits. And obviously the foods that you consume are generally whole, healthy, oats, things like that, where you basically consume all of your food from things that is as close to a natural source as possible. So big thing here, I'm going to leave a link to Stephan Guyenet's theory, so his hypothesis on obesity. So check that out. It's a very, very fascinating hypothesis of obesity and why do we overeat. So the next tip that I want to give you here is that you do not want to drink your calories. I mean, a lot of people are simply not paying too much attention to this. And why is this a problem? Well, when I did a study, what happens if people drink, let's say 800 calories, 600 calories, 1,000 calories, they don't get any satiety signal from that, almost nothing, because it completely bypasses all your defense mechanisms that you have against overeating. So it just goes right through that, and those liquid calories like milkshakes, stuff that you found, there's a lot of processed sugar in it, that completely bypasses all of that. just gets stored. It doesn't even give you any feeling of fullness. And it's a fascinating study. I'm going to leave it in the description below as well. And you do not want to drink your calories. And this is a huge one. I mean, if your goal is to diet down, if your goal is to be in that caloric deficit, you don't have the luxury to spend that many calories on drinks. You don't have the luxury to go out and just have some kind of 800, 1,000 calorie shake. You want to spend those calories, as I said, on whole, healthy, unprocessed foods. And one exception to this is actually whey protein that is found to blunt hunger. And that is, as I said, so it's some rule, there is some exception. So whey protein and protein drinks in general can actually help with reducing that hunger level. So keep in mind, loaded sugary drinks like sodas and things like that definitely give you zero return on investment, so make sure to minimize the amount in your diet. The next really key thing here is that you want to eat slower, and there's been really good research on this, is that we generally eat too fast. I'm to blame for this 100%. I'm generally very stressed when I eat because I always like try to do so many things at once. I'm always in a rush. I'm trying to do so many things, and I just pile the food in as fast as humanly possible. And this is a habit that I've trained myself in for decades. You know, I'm always eating too damn fast. And what happens really is that I could pile on hundreds of extra calories without even knowing, because I don't give myself enough time to really notice what the hell is happening. I don't even have that signal. I just basically eat until the tank is completely full. And that can sometimes be an enormous amount of calories. And if you really sit down, if you try to consume as max amount of food as you can, as fast as you can, within 10 minutes, you're gonna be able to eat a ton of calories. But if you just say, hey, okay, I have plenty of time and I'm just gonna eat slower, I'm gonna try to enjoy the meal. It's kind of like a French style, you know, if people are on a holiday, if you go to France or if you go to places like that, like Italy, like here in Croatia as well, people are like, okay, they have a bite, they chat a little bit, it's fine, you know, there's no rush. And generally, it results in consumption of less calories, because it's not just about the hunger, but it's also about how many calories you consume. And if you're rushing, you will consume a ton more calories in the meal, and the hunger and the satiety will be the same, according to like a whole research review, a compilation, which I'm going to leave as well in the description below, which you can look into, is that those extra calories that you gain from eating fast don't contribute to anything to satiety levels. So basically you're eating more for nothing. And this really ties well into the last point that I want to make here, the point 5, which is something more coming from that anecdotal research, from observational research, from cultures, where people basically eat not until they feel full, but until they no longer feel hungry. So they eat slower, they feel that signaling. Basically, you're trying to get in tune with that signaling, your natural signal of when you're full or when you're hungry. So people generally in cultures like Japan, they eat until they're 80% full. So the 80% full, they stop, because they know that it takes a while for that signaling to actually connect, and they generally eat less calories and are in better shape. In cultures like Okinawa and the island of Okinawa, which is very famous for the world's population of centenarians that they have. But the point is, of this final tip is to get back in the tune of how you're feeling. Are you just eating because you're eating, or are you just eating to basically not feel hungry anymore? And that's the key here, is that you want to find where is that threshold. You want to get back into that natural rhythm and say, okay, that is when I feel like less hungry, and now I basically am full. I'm not like eating until the max of food I can, but no, I'm just eating until I'm no longer hungry, and that will allow you to manage your calories a lot more. And eventually, once you get into this habit, you will be able to sustain a lot more of a caloric deficit and not feel less hungry, and at the same time, you're gonna pretty much enjoy life a little bit more because you're not rushing and not being stressed so much. So 5 tips here backed up by research. I made videos on this in the past. I'm going to leave that video in the description below as well, which is containing 8 tips that are further tips that I didn't mention in this video, like sleep, like things like you can use, like chewing gums, like tea, coffee, and all these other little tips and tricks that you can use between the meals to feel less hungry, to reduce those cravings. So I'm going to leave that in the description below for you guys to check out. And aside from that, let me know in the comments below which one of these tips resonated with you the most. Are you the type of person that eats too fast like myself, or are you constantly being distracted while you're eating? So let me know in the comments below. Aside from that, make sure to hit that subscribe button below to support the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.